My dad will fire you for being a middle school graduate. The boss's arrogant daughter, Maria, declared this haughtily. It was a jab at me, the one who always scolded her for her arrogance. Hearing her childish retort, I glared at her with a stern expression. You're just a petty villain acting tough. This is not your playground. What? When you go abroad, you'll encounter far worse monsters. You need to refine your boldness in a positive way. Got it, Missy? When I said this, Maria left with a grinding of her teeth and a parting shot. Little did I know at the time, these words would significantly impact not just her, but also my future and the company's. Impressive, just as I expected. What? My name is James Brown, 40 years old. I work for a major corporation, Octos Trading. Though I live a stable life now, my school days were far from it. My parents divorced when I was in the 3rd year of middle school. My mother took me in, changed my last name to James, and moved us overseas right after I graduated from middle school. My mother, Linda, was a whirlwind of energy. In a positive light, she was active. In a negative light, she was constantly impulsive. Without any acquaintances abroad, I was often swept up in her chaos as a kid. The idea of scraping together tuition to send her child to school probably never crossed her mind. As a result, my highest level of education remained middle school. However, the chaotic overseas life helped me acquire language skills, courage, and various other abilities. Maybe I managed to keep up with my headstrong mother because we were two of a kind. But my mother passed away 15 years ago when I was 25. After properly mourning her as her son, I returned to the US for the first time in years. Using this as a fresh start, I joined Octos Trading. Despite my middle school education, I was hired thanks to my extensive overseas experience and fearless personality inherited from my mother. But fate is unpredictable. 3 years after joining the company, 12 years ago, my name is David Smith, and I have just been appointed as the new CEO of Octos Trading. I look forward to working with all of you. What, Dad? At the general meeting for the new CEO's appointment, I unexpectedly saw my real father. Since then, I've continued to work as an employee while hiding the fact that I am the CEO's son. I didn't want to cause any trouble for my father, and I didn't want to be seen through a biased lens. 12 years have passed in this distant yet close relationship. This year, someone appeared who would drastically change my environment. One day, there was a buzz in the foreign trade department where I work. As usual, I came to the office, and a junior employee approached me. Good morning, James. Have you heard the news? The news? What are you talking about? The CEO's daughter is going to be assigned to our department starting today. It's going to be a disaster. Seeing the junior employee holding his head, I shrugged my shoulders. At that moment, the floor was suddenly enveloped in tension. Turning around, I saw a woman with long hair flowing elegantly as she approached. The department head, who was accompanying her, spoke hesitantly. Ahem, as you all probably know, starting today, we have a new member in our department. I'm Maria Smith. Nice to meet you. I expect everyone to perform up to the standards of the department I belong to. Maria introduced herself, cutting off the department head, acting as if she were in charge. Maria Smith, 29 years old. She's the daughter of the long-time supporting CEO of Octos Trading, Mr. Smith. At least her attitude matches her status, I thought. I've heard rumors about her. She's known to be very assertive and arrogant, often leveraging her title as the CEO's daughter to do as she pleases. It's understandable why the junior employee was so worried. As for me, I wasn't particularly interested. If she's my father's daughter, that makes her my sister. However, Maria and I are not related. Maria is the stepdaughter of my father's second wife, meaning she's my stepsister. That's why I don't know much about Maria and have no real interest in her. Compared to my free-spirited mother, Maria's spoiled behavior seems almost cute. This must have shown on my face. Hey, you! Me? What is it? You have a really smug look on your face. Fix it. As soon as work started, Maria immediately picked a fight with me. It seems she didn't like that I was the only one who seemed uninterested while everyone else was nervous around her. With the junior employees watching anxiously, I shrugged and said, "That's mutual. You should be a bit more friendly. I'll try to do the same. Your attitude really bothers me. I think you need some training." "It's the other way around. You're the one who needs training. You should be saying, 'Please show me how to do the job.'" As soon as I said that, Maria's expression twisted. She grabbed a stack of papers nearby and threw it at my face. Maria pointed her finger at me as I picked up the papers. "I've decided, from today, you're my servant. I'll work you until you cry and apologize." "That's not part of my job description." "You're so insolent, really insolent. Just watch. I'll make sure you can't stay in this workplace." As Maria yelled, her face turned bright red. I thought, she's got a low boiling point for a young lady. As she stormed off, the junior employees gathered around me, looking worried. "James, are you really okay? You made the CEO's daughter so angry." "Well, let her say what she wants. Besides, if her anger is directed at me, you all can work more easily, right?" "You even thought about that, James. You're amazing." I received admiring looks from a few junior employees. It seems my fearless personality is well received in our workplace. I'm grateful for that. Understanding the difficulty of being at someone else's mercy, I thought if my colleagues could work peacefully, that was good enough for me. The problem is Maria. From this day on, as she declared, she began to harass me in various ways. She pushed her work onto me. She forced me to run errands. She tampered with the documents I created. Each time she harassed me, I scolded her. "Hey Maria, make sure you report properly. You're bothering the other employees." "What? Why do I have to listen to you? And don't call me by my first name? It's gross." In the US, calling by first names is normal. You like that treatment, right? Who said I like it? Despite her complaints, there was no sign of improvement. I was getting fed up, thinking at this rate, she'll make a big mistake soon. One day, I was waiting at a restaurant. It was a high-end place, famous in the neighborhood, where you couldn't just casually dine, even on a special occasion. This indicated that my meeting partner had a significant income. "Hey, sorry to keep you waiting." "You're late, Dad." I was so nervous, I thought I'd fill up on self-serve water. "You're not that kind of guy, James." Laughing heartily, my real father, David Smith, the CEO of Octo's Trading, sat across from me. He's 64 this year. Though he's close to retirement, he looks 10 years younger, which is puzzling. It's probably because he appears so gentle and somewhat timid at first glance. However, despite appearances, he's the top executive who has led a major trading company that earns billions each year for over a decade. Since he became CEO, we've occasionally had dinner together. I get tired of always dining at high-end restaurants, but it's likely a precaution to keep my identity a secret. "So, how's work going?" "Dad, you asked me that last year. It's the same as always. We always have these mundane conversations. But I don't mind. To me, Dad is both a respected, successful man and a slightly unfortunate guy who gets pushed around by eccentric women like my mom." That day, as always, we chatted about trivial things while enjoying gourmet food. At that moment, my dad's phone rang. Gesturing, "Sorry," he answered the call. "Yeah, that's a misunderstanding, Maria." "What?" "Maria too." "Oh, really sorry." I leaned on the table, watching my dad's conversation. A high-pitched voice from the phone was audible, and I could clearly hear the conversation. The caller was my dad's second wife, Maria, and her daughter, Maria. It seemed they were both accusing my dad of something. After talking for about 10 minutes, my dad hung up and sighed deeply. Oh man, they suspected me of cheating again. I guess I need to buy them gifts. Dad, don't you think you're spoiling them too much? When I voiced my criticism, my dad scratched his head. To change the subject, he asked, "How's Maria? You're working in the same office this year, right?" "Well, she's the worst. It's baffling how someone could act the way she does." I told him honestly what I thought. Just because she's my stepsister doesn't mean I have to hold back. She's been targeting me and harassing me non-stop. I'll repeat it, Dad. You bear responsibility for Maria's behavior. By spoiling her, you're only making her worse. You've been remarried for 10 years now, right? Maybe it's time you took the reins more firmly. You're harsh, but you're right. I raised an eyebrow at his words. I expected him to brush it off as usual. But now, he seemed to be contemplating something. "James, please take care of Maria. With you around, she might have a good influence." "You're joking, no way. I'm going to keep doing things my way. How Maria feels about it is up to her." "Haha, that's just like you, James." I glared at my dad, but he stared back intently, leaving me at a loss for words. He repeated, "I'm counting on you, James. I have high expectations for you." I shrugged and simply replied, "Got it." Since having dinner with my dad, I began to scold Maria even more. When I closely observed Maria's behavior and work performance, her shortcomings became even more apparent. Turning her into a positive influence was impossible. So, I aimed to reduce the negatives, hoping they could at least become neutral or a bit less negative. Despite my efforts, Maria grew increasingly arrogant and continued to despise me. Her stubborn refusal to change was impressive in its own way. However, the more Maria disliked me, the more my colleagues' opinions of me improved. "Well, I could never do that. James is amazing." If James were my boss, I'd be super motivated. I felt a bit embarrassed by my colleagues' admiration. It might be a Japanese thing, but I thought, I'm not doing anything that deserves such praise. Nevertheless, the increased respect for me did have its benefits. Currently, I'm part of a team working on new product development and expanding sales channels with a few colleagues. And my job has become much easier. The team's morale and cohesion have improved. Thanks to this, my team was the first to succeed in developing the new product. However, that joy was short-lived. What? Why was our team's product rejected? One day, I was called in by the manager, and my tone became firm. Our proposal for the new product had been refused. When I glared at the manager, he looked away and wiped the sweat from his forehead. "I'm sorry, there was a similar proposal from another team, and we decided to go with theirs." "I see, Maria Smith, right?" "No, that's not, James. If you make her too angry, it could backfire on you too." "Don't worry about it. I'm not afraid of one spoiled brat." After saying this firmly, I headed to Maria's desk. She must have anticipated my arrival. Maria was leaning back in her chair, holding the documents, waiting for me. A glance at the charts revealed they were materials related to the product we developed. "Here you are, James." "Maria, stop these petty antics. Not only is it a waste of time, but it also affects team morale." As usual, I frowned while reprimanding her. There was something about Maria's attitude that seemed more confident than usual. Proving my suspicion, Maria smiled even wider and said, "Still as insolent as ever, fine. How about this?" With that, she began tearing up the documents in her hand. She did it slowly, making sure I could see each page being destroyed. Seeing our team's hard work trampled on, I finally raised my voice. "Maria, do you even understand what you've done? Enough of this nonsense." "Oh, how scary. But no matter how much you bark, you don't scare me anymore." She looked down at me, lifting her chin. "I heard about you. You're a dropout with no proper education, and a middle school dropout at that. Ha, it's hilarious. So, what's your point?" "Pretending to be tough, it's obvious." Maria pointed her finger at me, triumphant. "We don't need a dropout like you here. I'll tell my dad to fire you for being a middle school dropout," Maria declared haughtily. The room buzzed, but I was just dumbfounded. As I picked up the torn documents, I sighed and said, "So, our little princess did all this just to say, 'I'll tell Daddy and you'll be fired.' What? You should be more panicked. I'm the CEO's daughter. You're getting fired. 30 points. You're just a kid in an adult's body. Give it up and start over." "What?" Maria was furious. I fixed her with a stern glare, pinning her to her desk with my gaze. "You're just a petty villain acting tough. This isn't a playground. Use your cunning and energy for something better. As long as you keep doing this, you'll keep failing. No. When you go abroad, you'll encounter far worse monsters. You need to refine your boldness in a positive way to handle them. Got it, Missy?" As I said this, Maria stood up, grinding her teeth. She stomped away angrily. Just before leaving the office floor, she turned back and delivered a parting shot. "One day, I'll make you eat your words with my true power." "Yeah." I waved my hand dismissively, and Maria snorted before disappearing. Turning to my stunned colleagues, I said, "All right, let's rework the documents. Help me out." "Yes." I then organized the new product details and convinced the manager to approve our proposal again. The next day, as usual, I came to the office, only to be summoned to the secretary's office first thing in the morning. Apparently, my dad, the CEO of Optos Trading, wanted to speak with me directly. Thinking this might actually be my termination notice, I walked into the CEO's office. As soon as I entered, my dad, the CEO, said, "Impressive, just as I expected." "What?" I was stunned and couldn't respond immediately. My dad was smiling so broadly it seemed like he might hug me, so I asked, "What do you mean, Dad? I mean, Mr. CEO, what do you mean by just as I expected?" "Of course, I'm talking about how you handled Maria. I read the report. You did well yesterday." "Did well? I didn't do anything special. I just scolded her as usual. Besides, Maria's attitude hasn't changed at all, so it hardly counts as an achievement." "That's fine, James. It's just us here. And I've made sure our conversation won't be overheard. Speak freely, as you normally would." He gestured for me to sit on a luxurious sofa. When I sat down, Dad folded his arms and said, "As I mentioned during our meal, I expect you to positively influence Maria. I think your interaction with her yesterday was excellent advice that could guide her in a better direction." "Only you could say something like that, James. That's why I said, just as I expected. You know the details of such a minor interaction from just yesterday? Being a CEO means having superhuman hearing, I guess. This level of information gathering is just the beginning." Dad laughed meaningfully. Despite his gentle appearance, he's clearly fit to have led a major corporation for over a decade. Then, someone who seemed to be a secretary came in and served us coffee. The secretary placed a cup in front of me and simultaneously slid some documents towards me. When I raised an eyebrow in suspicion, Dad waited until the secretary left the room before speaking. "After hearing about yesterday's incident, I'm convinced. James, I have a special request. Can you help reform Maria from the ground up?" "From the ground up, you mean not just by talking to her like before, but more directly involved with her?" "Exactly, and I've prepared the authority for you to do so." Dad gestured for me to look at the documents. I picked up a few sheets of paper and flipped through them. "This is a job order, a job description, and these are an idea and password. James, starting today, you'll also be working in the strategic planning department." "I've heard of it." The strategic planning department reports directly to the CEO and is granted significant authority, including personnel and audit powers. I've been with Optos Trading for 15 years and have never seen this rare department. I don't even think it's marked on the company's department map. It's a department shrouded in mystery for the employees. The job order indeed states, You are assigned to concurrently work in the strategic planning department. As I looked at the documents, I furrowed my brow. For something decided so quickly after yesterday, the preparation seemed too thorough. I glanced at my dad and saw his usual cheerful smile. However, I couldn't help but feel that his eyes weren't smiling. I realized that even close by, there were people with monstrous abilities. Placing the documents on my lap, I bowed deeply. I humbly accept this assignment. Good. I'll have the secretary show you to your dedicated desk shortly. There, you can review what needs to be done. Your responsibilities will become clear. Yes, sir. By the way, Dad, just to clarify. I lowered my voice. What if Maria doesn't change? In that case, there's nothing more to be done. The gravity of his brief response made me shiver. After that, I was led by my dad's secretary to the middle floors of the headquarters building. This floor had more space occupied than the others. I thought it was just for electrical systems, but it turns out this is where the strategic planning department is located. Passing through a particularly sturdy door with a special key, I entered an area with several individual offices. According to the secretary, each employee assigned to the strategic planning department gets one of these individual offices to carry out their duties. It felt like an intelligence agency. I wondered when my dad had set up something like this as I entered my assigned room. The interior had a standard setup, a computer, desk, locker, and other typical office furniture. I noticed a lot of wiring and space that could accommodate additional monitors if needed. Using the ID and password provided with my assignment, I booted up the PC and performed the initial setup. As I casually checked the data and internal software on the PC, my face tightened. Wow, just how much data can this ID access? The sheer volume of accessible information was overwhelming. The access levels seemed to far exceed that of department heads. It seemed I could check up on each employee individually if I wanted. I shrugged. I see now why the strategic planning department is so shrouded in mystery. This isn't a job for just anyone, is it, Dad? Incidentally, I had experience with this type of information work from my time abroad. Given the department's name, it's not surprising the top-secret development projects critical to the company's future might be run here. But that's not the role my dad entrusted me with. My main task was to reform Maria from the ground up. Data related to Maria was surprisingly easy to obtain. I shrugged at her sparse work history as an employee in the Foreign Trade Department. Still, it was a considerable amount to review alone. As I prepared to juggle both roles, I stumbled upon some peculiar data. What's this? She's claiming a lot of travel expenses, and there are several that were created but not approved. I recalled Maria's usual behavior. She was rarely at her desk. I assumed she was just slacking off, but now I realized she got a lot of phone calls despite not doing much work. Was she making sales calls somewhere? This seems suspicious, and she did say yesterday, "One day, I'll make you eat your words with my true power." As I dug deeper, I started to think Maria wasn't just a lazy, arrogant slacker. Gradually, I began to understand what my dad meant by reforming from the ground up. After some time juggling duties between the Foreign Trade Department and the Strategic Planning Department, something significant happened. I waited in my car parked in the employee parking lot. Eventually, I saw a company car start to move, and I turned on my engine. I had previously checked the company car number and knew Maria was in it. It was rare for a princess like her to drive herself. Of course, she chose the best company car available. That's so typical of her. I began to follow Maria. She drove to a rundown commercial building on the outskirts of town. I saw her car enter a warehouse attached to the building, so I got out of my car. After finishing up with my phone and other preparations, I looked around. There was no one in sight, and it was quiet. As a result, I could hear the voices of people inside the building from outside. None of the mailboxes had tenant names. Without hesitation, I entered the building. I opened the door to the room where the voices were coming from and walked in boldly. Hello there, just thought I'd drop in. What, James? What are you doing here? Maria, who had been lounging on the farthest sofa, quickly stood up in a panic. There were several men in suits around her. They froze, holding drinks, as if they were hosting Maria. Wine in the middle of the day. Must be nice. Don't just stand there, answer me, you high school dropout. Nice to see you too. I came to check on your work. When I responded, Maria's expression visibly tightened. One of the suited men asked her, "What's going on, Maria? You didn't mention having other associates." "Shut up. I don't know what's going on either." Maria was flustered for a moment, but then decided to put on a brave face since it was me. She raised her chin, as usual, and spoke to me. "You're probably here to lecture me again. Too bad for you. Unlike you, I'm about to accomplish something big. I don't want to hear your nagging, but if you want to help, you can stay, but you'll be my servant for life." Too much talking. 30 points. What? Again? Maria's face turned red with indignation. She clearly held a grudge over my previous remarks. As I thought how spirited this exchange was, one of the men in suits approached me. "Hey, speaking to Miss Smith like that takes some guts for an employee. Not as much as you, Mr. Charles Williams from the Oriental Nexus Foreign Trade Department." "What? How do you know my name and our company name?" Charles, the man in the suit, was visibly rattled. "Oriental Nexus is a rival trading company, rumored to operate in the grey areas of the law to make quick profits." I looked at the remaining men, identifying each one by name and their affiliations. Their expressions confirmed I was correct. "Well, you certainly picked an interesting hideout. This place really has the vibe of a lair for petty villains. High marks for artistry. Damn it, if you keep talking like that. However, I'm the one used to handling rough situations." I grabbed his arm, spun around, and pinned him to the floor, neutralizing him. In the blink of an eye, the other men, and even Maria, were stunned. Maria trembled as she spoke. "What are you planning to do to me?" "What I do depends on you. I told you, I'm here to check on your work. Is that laptop on the table for this deal?" As I spoke, Maria hurriedly closed the laptop. "I don't know anything. I have no idea." Saying you know nothing is basically admitting you know something. After releasing Charles, I pulled a set of documents from my bag. I waved them in the air. "These are records of the shady dealings between us and Oriental Nexus. The data on that laptop should match these. Want to take a look?" "What? How much do you know?" "Let's see," I said, touching my chin. I revealed how Oriental Nexus had targeted Maria and her mother to bring down David Smith. Maria had been leaking internal information from Octo's trading in exchange for large sums of money and luxuries. She had also been setting up internal schemes to frame her stepfather, David Smith, for her own embezzlement. As I smoothly exposed their corruption, Maria and the others went from pale to ghostly white. Maria, gasping like a fish out of water, groaned. "I'll tell Daddy, and he'll have you fired immediately. It was your dad who gave me the authority to investigate this. Do you even realize how absurd you sound?" Helping bring down the CEO while relying on his power made no sense at all. To Maria, David Smith was just a convenient tool. Her true power was the borrowed authority from Oriental Nexus. Disgusting. My gaze made Maria shrink back, and she let out a short scream. She asked hesitantly, Who are you? There's no way a high school dropout could pull this off." "Yeah, you're right. I'm David Smith's son, his real, blood-related son." "What?" "Unlike you, I don't go around flaunting that I'm the CEO's kid." I approached Maria. She seemed paralyzed, sinking into the sofa, unable to move. The men around her, terrified, kept their distance. As I retrieved the laptop, I spoke while operating my phone. "Here's your final lesson from your stepbrother. If you underestimate society, you'll end up getting hurt like this. You should have listened to the advice of your elders sooner. Ah. Maria trembled violently. At that moment, several more men burst into the room. They were employees of Octo's Trading, waiting nearby for my signal. Maria was also taken away by them. I delivered the final blow to the terrified Maria as she glanced back at me. Reform from the ground up. Start your life over, both you and your mother. Without a word, Maria slumped her shoulders and was escorted out of the building by Octo's Trading employees. Afterward, Maria was held accountable for information leaks and embezzlement and was dismissed from Octo's Trading with a disciplinary discharge. My investigation had gathered enough evidence, leaving her no room for excuses. Following this, my dad divorced her mother and cut ties with Maria. Having lost their backing, Maria and her mother struggled to make ends meet, living day by day while facing enormous compensation claims from the company. It was a hefty price for life's lessons, but they brought it on themselves. A year after Maria's incident, James, congratulations on your appointment as vice president. Thank you. Colleagues I had known for years kept congratulating me, and I responded with a strained smile. Today is a party celebrating the new management team of Octo's Trading. I've been promoted to vice president at this event. The narrative is that I exposed Maria's conspiracy and saved the future of Octo's Trading. It seems almost certain that I'll eventually become the CEO. After being jostled around, I stepped out into a deserted hallway to escape the crowd. My son, I knew you'd come here to escape. Dad, you really did it. I muttered resentfully, and my dad laughed heartily. He didn't look at all like a former CEO who had resigned in disgrace. Dad had stepped down from his role to take responsibility for the scandal caused by our family. That's the official story. But I was convinced from the start. Dad had planned all along to cut ties with Maria and her mother, pave the way for me to become CEO, and start his own leisurely retirement. He's truly extraordinary. I don't think I'll ever catch up to you. What are you saying? There's nothing left for me to teach you. But if I were to give you one last piece of advice, be very careful with women, seriously. Smiling at his unusually strong words, I clinked glasses with my dad.